Yes.
Oh, look how pretty that is. What is
Thank
it?
you. Well, you've got starry sky, mountains, a blast of sunlight creating an effect on the green screen, and
Oh,
then a shooting star or something off on the
well,
side.
the thing on the sun is the thing, and I was like, whoa, what's that?
It's kind of pretty.
It is kind of pretty. It kind of adds to the whole thing.
Yeah,
Okay, am I
light.
centered? Good. Did you get my
How
stuff?
I got your stuff, got it in here.
Thank you, my dear. How are you?
Doing well. It's been an interesting week, but doing well.
I'm having so many technical issues. I went and I can't figure out what is going on. It was still glitching out as of 9 this morning. I have actually went and brought my focus right. They said can't, probably not the box, not the headphones, probably, and I replaced the cord, still had the problem. I then deleted like this 2.83 terabytes of data
Wow,
that
that's a huge
that
amount of data.
Skype installed. I don't know if you've ever had it. It's like a Skype cache that was
Mm.
installed on my hard drive, making it go berserk. And now I don't know what else is going on. I'm
Oh,
hoping it
you will
works.
see.
So hopefully there are no technical glitches, but there were some at 9 in the morning, and I got a couple of like connection low connection kind of thing. So maybe now I'm thinking it may be a network thing. Maybe I need to replace the cord. I don't really know.
Stay tuned. We'll
Yes.
see what comes up during the show and see what I can tell you about it.
Yes. All right. All right. I'm good.
So let me have you angle the camera down just a little bit if you can.
Good.
Yep, that's good. Let me check
Oh,
out the
actually, you
video.
know what? The light's not good. I don't have my. Oh, it's right in my face. Okay. Oh my God. It's just like, oh my God. Okay.
Looks good there. All righty. Yeah, let's call in those angels and guides. Reset recorders.
Hmm.
And then have you, if we can angle your, whoop,
Wait, hold on. This camera,
you
this
got
thing
it.
is like right in my eye. I don't know what I did. Maybe I had it off center before. Okay. Now, oh my God. Maybe it's because I was in the dark before. Gosh. Okay. Good. All right. If I can angle my camera more down.
Actually, the reverse now. Stop right there.
Okay.
Actually, go back down a little bit. And then scoot you to the right or camera to the left, just a tiniest smidge. Or maybe best to have you scoot right in your chair just a tiny bit. Perfect. And will you be sitting there or back or forward?
I guess here.
Then if we can angle your camera down just a little bit. Very good.
Okay. Good.
All right, I'll take a few deep breaths. Very good. Actually, let me get a testing 1, 2, 3 on you if I could.
Testing 1, 2, 3 on you. Testing one,
Perfect.
two, three.
Hello, my name is. State your name or however that goes. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation, along with.
CJ Lou, I'm already laughing. CJ Lou fired up with
What did you get?
CJ
10
show.
words. Woohoo! If you've ever had things go sideways or not quite your way, then do we have the resilient bounce back show for you?
Oh no.
Today we'll talk about how to be more resilient, bounce back fast, and even what to say or think to help you overcome life's most challenging hurdles. That plus we'll talk about losing a dearest friend, life is tenuous, getting out of bardo, tech madness, Skype cache files gone mad, cats and mice being run over by the Pookie, the
Oh,
importance of words and one's outlook, sending out love no matter what, and what in the world contract madness or mess has to do with anything. So, welcome back to the show, CJ. Are you ready to
I
shine?
am ready to shine.
Woohoo!
Woo! Although, are we shining or mourning based on that
I think some
description?
of I think some of both in here, and morning can be shining or shining can be morning. Lost one of our dearest friends this week,
Oh,
who the woman who went with Jessica to Dr. Joe Dispenza just a few weeks back,
oh wow.
and she passed away on Monday evening. Carla Solberg, amazing, amazing human being, had the most incredible Buddha laugh. And I'm convinced, and she has certainly peppered our week to say the least. But I'm convinced when she took her last breath, was taken by her mother over to the other side, so to speak, she is dancing a jig. So it's a matter of resilience, how you frame things, how you choose to look at things. I know there's life after life, and I know she's partying. I'm like tempted to cry, something to cry right now, but uh, I don't want to say everything in life happens for a reason in such a circumstance like this, but there's so much more than meets the eye, so much more than meets the eye, and I know it's so cliche to say in a better place, but she's got to be partying up there.
So you knew her from Hawaii? Wait, how did you know her?
No, we knew her. She became just instrumental in our lives this past year, and was our closest friend this year and our closest companion, and really not a
In
day really
Colorado or where?
in Colorado. She's actually in Wyoming, and we were in touch every day via email, via Skype. I did some coaching work with her. She was in all of our group coaching sessions with everybody.
Oh,
And she just brought light to everybody, and just such a kind hearted soul who, like all of us, we all have our challenges. She went with Jessica to Dr. Joe, other than, forgive me, Carla, her snoring. It was an amazing experience for the two of them down there. And she had terminal cancer at that point, but she was working past her fears and her challenges, and even did, like, you climb up on some sort of ropes course and you fall over backwards and you're captured by parachute, and she broke through that barrier, and so it was
mm,
so cool to see. But she came back from Dr. Joe's event on fire, but a week and a half, maybe less than 2 weeks later, she was gone, and we got. I
oh wow,
coached
that's very fast.
very
Wow.
fast. I coached her 5 days before she passed away, um, and then I think 2 days before she passed away, I'm convinced, looking back, she had the burst. We had this amazing conversation. She was on fire. She was so energized, and then she was gone.
Well, it's interesting. I just interviewed Lama Surya Das about
Uh,
death.
I,
Do you know him? Lama Surya Das.
yes,
He's
yes,
so
yes.
wonderful. And he has this book called Make Me One with Everything. And chapter 8 is about death. And his.
I've got to chuckle for a second, because when you say makes me one with everything, Lama Surya Das is very tongue in cheek. And so I think it's actually like a hamburger, maybe on the cover of his book, when he says make me one with, or a hot dog. I think it's a hot dog.
Yeah, no, it's a story with Dalai Lama where they said, "What will you have?" And he said, "Make me one with everything." So that's like the punchline. so so that's the punchline. That's also, and Lama Suridas loves that story, and he wrote this book, and it's about inner meditation, and he tells some beautiful stories in that book. One of which was about his mother, Joyce, who he was very close. I think Joyce Miller is her name that he was very close to. And and when she passed, he was in the room in the funeral parlor where they were looking, or kind of in that kind of I don't know if I'm going to get the story right, so sorry, Lama Suridas. But you can listen to my show I just did with him, and he talks about being in the room with her and doing what's called inner meditation, where you clear yourself, go into the void, and then you tune into that other person. And he said he could feel his mother's presence there and that she was still there. And then he proceeded to talk about death and how the Buddha said that it was the greatest teacher, it was his guru. And that if we can learn about death, we can learn so much more about living and life. And he then said, he talked about the Tibetan Book of Dying in his
Oh, yeah.
book, and how they actually have 21 days of rituals where they send light and prayer and love and support as a person goes through the bardo, and helping them go and find their loved ones, connecting with their loved ones. And then I don't know what the 21 days is, but they actually have 23 weeks
Yeah.
of meditation and support that they give that person as they pass to the next stage, to give them resilience, and I think probably give their loved ones resilience as they kind of, to know that there's life never ends. Like, it's just maybe not life on this plane, but spirit is always there.
I've had several. Christine Rasmussen has a book on being able to travel to the other side of the veil and see your loved ones. I did the briefest exercise with her on the show, and I can't recommend her enough if you haven't had her on,
I have her on
Christina.
next week.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And I was there on the other side in this very brief meditation we did, and I had on her name is escaping me at the moment. Ram Dass's co-author I had on a few weeks ago on death and dying as well, and I believe it's just and we've had on Raven Moody a couple months ago as well. Life continues. It doesn't continue. Carla doesn't necessarily continue in our reality, but in her reality, it's seamless.
Mm-hmm.
There's life after life. It's absolutely continuous. She may not be here for us. Somebody go through Bardo may not be here for us, but it's infinite.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you can look at it that way, um, loss is still loss. You still miss somebody ever so dearly, and that whole, in a sense, can't be replaced. I mean, I still have my coaching sessions in the calendar for her, and I don't know what to do about it, CJ. I can't take them out. I couldn't put somebody in that spot, you
Right.
know, but it continues. I think sending them love and like you're saying, and helping them through this process, maybe it's actually helping us through the process even more so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It helps both parties. Who knows how much it helps her? Who know? But it probably minimally helps you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, knowing that you're doing something and knowing that she's crossing a threshold, not necessarily, she's never going to be gone through your life because she's always there. It's hard. I mean, when my dad has died, I don't spend a lot of, like, I feel like he's with me, but it's not like, well, Lama Surya said he talks to his mother all the time. He has long conversations with his mom all the time. I don't have that kind of connection. I think it's more because I choose not to do that, but I could. And it seems like people who do are completely feel full and rich as if that person's never passed.
Now Jessica has started doing automatic writing to Carla, and she's like, I'm not sure if what I'm hearing is real or if I'm making it up. I've started doing it with automatic writing. I have reached out to like our mentor Jack, who was my best man at 89 years young. He passed away at 93 and a half after at 93 retiring from driving the nursing home bus. He would, quote, drive the youngsters around. He was my kind of mentor. And I've had communications with him. With Carla right now, I don't know. It's too raw, too soon to know if what it is real or if it's made up by the mind. I have no idea. I do know that, like you're saying, death teaches us so much. And I've already got two major themes coming through from her passing. And one is really peppering my coaching, which is I'm the kind, gentle, easy, good coach. I hold your hand. I'll walk you through the process. I'll help get you there. But I have a little bit of an edge to me now. I have a no BS edge to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not going to take you lying to yourself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of kind, gentle, easy, good, point it out to you because life is short and lying to ourselves just perpetuates the stop. So I'm like the same. So I'm just like, stop, wait a second here. I could have done that. That was so 2018. I could have let you get away with that. But not a chance now. But I had to call myself on this. And this is something I've talked about in a few shows recently. So I don't want to be too redundant. But I know when I quote mess something up, there's no such thing. But when I do something quote wrong, mess something up, whatever we want to call it, I still have that inner gene, that inner wiring in me that wants to fire and put me down, tell me I'm less than, or anything of that
Mm-hmm.
sort.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I've done a lot of work on it, it's still substantial. The unworthy is still not gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said I've done a lot of work on it and come a long way. I've never said it's completely healed. But
Right.
now I'm going after it like it's nobody's business. I am saying I am going to love up my inner child and work to heal this wound with everything that I've got. It's sort of like when I had my first near death experience. I said, you cannot afford to be in a negative place if you're going to survive, if you're going to heal, if you're going to be whole again. I'm saying the same thing to myself now about the wounds inside of me.
Mm.
If you are going to fully live this lifetime, Michael, you have got to heal those wounds. And that's my challenge for everybody, I guess. But that came out of watching Carla and her challenges and her passing and going, wait a second, I've got to dive even deeper into the work.
Wow, that's inspirational that your death actually focused your life
Oh, heck
in
yeah.
that way and kind of having this no holds bar. Like, in the end, you could die tomorrow. Like, you better work on this stuff.
Well, my joke is, and you got to be careful what you say, you got to choose your words carefully. But my joke always has been, you never know when a piano is going to fall
Yeah,
from the sky.
I know. Well, it was funny because I was just talking to my husband, and he's been writing a draft proposal for a book proposal for
Yeah.
this book, and it's taken him a really long time to write it because and he's had a wonderful experience because he's learned so much about writing and the proposal process and marketing, and the world of publishing is so different than it was even
Oh,
probably
God,
last
yes.
year. And he got a proposal, and he's like, I just can't finish it. And he's like, I don't. And then what we figured out is that he just didn't have the passion and energy around the topic.
Mhm.
And
That's important.
yeah, and he's like, well, I feel like I could write this book on blockchain, but if I do, like, I don't know if I can spend a whole year and a half writing about blockchain. And and I was like, well, then what do you want to write? He's like, well, I want to write it is about this. And I said, okay, well, why don't you, life is too short. You could spend a year and a half writing the book that you don't want to write because it's marketable according to the marketing people and will sell a lot. But what will it do
For
to
those who
you?
can't see my head getting whiplash going sideways here.
You got to write the book that you want to write because otherwise, how are you going to find the energy? And so he's like, yeah, I just have to do this because life is too short. Like, why spend time doing things that just don't bring you joy? Like, I mean, there's certain things like, yeah, work doesn't bring me joy, but then how can you do, as you said, how can you find the joy within yourself and have that be the anchor point and not have anything external to you shift that internal joy because it's all doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm saying two things at one time: finding the internal joy within yourself, and then uh, even and use that when you're facing things that you don't want to do. And if you have a choice of choosing joy or not choosing joy, choose joy.
I
That's
no
what I'm
no this
saying.
makes perfect sense. It's all energy, and I believe joy is the gift that came wrapped around our heart. You
Yeah.
do what brings you passion. You do what brings you joy. That is celebrating life, celebrating source, God, universe, the divine. It's what you came here to do. Is what you're most passionate about. If you instead say, and this is head driving the machine or head driving the ship, and it's something I got an automatic writing this week. It was pretty awesome, pretty profound. It was talking about the head as the child, the heart as the elder. And the child is fairly undisciplined, and we actually have to bring discipline to it with the heart, guide it like a parent, or it's all over the place. Now, the head might say, for survival, I want money. Let's do something money oriented. But if that's not your passion, if your passion is making money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's your passion and then hopefully doing something with that money, that can be pretty cool. But if you're not, if you're doing it for the head's sake, you're not using your gifts.
Yeah.
And inevitably, at the end of the day, when you do bring it home here, I love what I do. I love it. I love it. I love it. I hate doing the uploads. I hate doing the show notes. I hate this piece. I hate that piece. We're getting help on board. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? We're getting some assistance for me. But with that said, if I'm passionate about it, then late at night, if something's gone, quote, wrong, as we're talking about on the show, because I'm following my passion, my joy, I can muscle through that. If at the end of the day I'm going, well, it's going to bring me some money, you know, and I feel it's what I think I'm supposed to do, you crash. And you go, oh, to heck with it, I'm going to bed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that's, we're talking about resilience and bouncing back, and that's part of it, right? It's partially, it's making conscious choices to begin with. And it's funny because I've been thinking more and more, there's, in my tradition, there's a mandala, and in the middle is a dot. And in that dot is like a lotus flower and then 4 gates around it. And then there's like a little trident that goes on top of it, which is, mandalas are supposed to be 3D, which I didn't realize until recently. So it's like supposed to be a 3D image. So the trident goes up like this and it goes down into the center. And the center point is our individuated point of consciousness. And we're birthed, when we are come into manifestation, into this meat body, there's joy and happiness and, you know, freedom and all those kinds of things. And so we're birthed from joy. Our center around us, in the center of us, is joy. And then what happens is we get, you know, we're kind of like, that's our, you know, like originating point. And then what happens is over time, we get further and further from that point. We're like on the lower point instead of actually up the trident. We're kind of like in an individuated point in our own ego, and we miss the point of going up towards, you know, we are in our own individuated will. We act out of that individual will, and we create actions that are karmic actions, that are ego-based actions. And really the whole practice is being in joy, having that joy be permeating your being. And then once you're in that joy, being in kind of a cosmic consciousness, and then having that cosmic knowledge, cosmic will create cosmic action. And it's just like, but it's about starting from joy to begin with. And so I've been walking around just thinking, I'm just like, what if this moment was the most joyful moment of your life? Like, what if this, like, you could just embrace the joy of like looking at Michael's face and of like this beautiful expansive universe and sky beyond you, the lights in my studio like that are just shining white light on my face. You know, what would it be like if you could just tune into that joy? Because you could tune into everything else. I have like a bunch of notes to the Final Cut Pro people. I have like tons of notes that I have to like write up for my client. Like I could tune into all that. But how could I just tune into the joy of every moment? And how, when I actually do call Final Cut Pro and clean these notes, how can I bring joy into that? And that's kind of been my challenge, I think, this year. Is bringing joy in every moment.
I love it though. We are having some, it's a whole long story. Will I go there? We will see. I'm having a whole contract challenge on the Tesla at the moment. We got a really cryptic email from the finance department. and we're working through this. And I literally had most of the night last night working on showing them different numbers of where somebody on New Year's Eve who drafted a new contract must have been completely drunk. And
Oh no.
and this morning I got up, and what I got out of automatic writing was, forget about how this comes out. What can you do to make people happy today? What can you do to bring a smile to everybody at Tesla who you're working with? That is bringing in the joy. Helping them to smile, which I did, helped me, maybe even with an inner smile.
Mm.
Whatever the result is, and I'm very hopeful for a positive result as we're picking up the vehicle tomorrow, but whatever the result is in some way not as meaningful as to how much joy I can bring to others,
Mm-hmm.
which really feeds right back to myself, because then you feel good about things
Right.
no matter what.
Right. And I think it's about just feeling joy. I mean, in that particular case, the how you feel joy in yourself, the way that you're hardwired is to make other people feel joy. And when you feel joy, and I'm actually hardwired the same way, but not everyone is hardwired that way. So I only mention that as a caveat because not everyone's hardwired. And they're like, because I've actually, my son's like, I know I should feel good about helping, like I should want to help other people, but that's not how I feel bad that I'm not that way. I'm like, you don't have to be that way. Not everyone is hard coded. Some people, that's their mission. But yeah, it's what you need to do to make yourself happy. So for him, it may be mastering deeply one area and becoming very, very competent in it. That's what brings him joy. So
Yeah,
or for him it's creative expression, like just creating a video
huge.
or yeah. So, but focusing on that I think is important. So your dear friend Carla, so any other thoughts about death and what you learned from that, kind of what you're learning in process?
Where I'm placing my thought, my focus, I think is becoming more important. Maybe I'm realizing, I know the first few nights before her passing, after her passing, was how much love can I send to her, and how much can I get into that place of love. But it's just watching how much the mind goes where we don't want it to go, or we
Mm,
don't intend it to go. And if life really is precious, which it is, then I want to rein that in, and even more have it go where I want it to go.
mm,
And so I'm finding my awareness even more precious. That doesn't mean I don't take time off or zone out or have some silly movie. Lately it's been foreign movies that I play interspersed with my work to because of the ebb and flow I tend to do with my mind. But to treat my time, both my time in my temporal environment, but also the time in my mind, as even more precious.
mm,
Do I really want to focus on this chewing gum of the mind over here? Do I really want to focus on this warrior concern over there? I've had this beautiful exercise that came out around this time. I may have shared it with you last week. So if so, forgive me, and we'll move on. A linking exercise.
oh yeah, you
Did I?
did. Yeah, you did.
And that is when I notice I'm going into the dweller, into the dwelling. I find it so important to find a way to bounce out of that thought pattern so quickly, because life is too short to be spending all my time having this repetitive thought going over and over and over again, which is keeping me from living.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been an important shift as I've been watching where, gosh, she was so brilliantly positive there at the end, but watching where her mind was going and learning from her, because the student is the teacher the student, however you call that. And she was probably like a master in human form here, having her own challenges to teach us, as
Mm,
we all have our own challenges to teach us. But taking more control of the mind and really being a parent to our minds. Our minds are all addicted. I believe main addiction that we have is fear or negativity. That's what kept us alive. That kept us from the tiger in the past. So it's time we get to set some boundaries with our minds and how pull them away, separate them from the addiction, give them something else that they can focus on. And that's really one of the big gifts that I've gotten from Carla.
Yeah, that's nice. I I when I interviewed Lama Surya Das in his book, Make Me One of Everything, he talked several times about not letting go, but letting in and accepting. I
Yes.
thought, wow, that's really interesting. And he
That's a
said,
biggie.
yeah, and he said, because letting go sometimes can go into denial or complacency or all different kinds of places in the name of letting go. But really, what you're doing is like you're denying something, or you're getting complacent about something, or just getting whatever. But it's letting in and accepting. And then even the way that he described it, I thought was so beautiful. It's like letting it in. So yeah, I'm gonna miss Carla. I'm going, I miss my dad. I miss Jida, who just left for, North Carolina. Like, that's like a real feeling, and I feel it like right, like right in my heart. And sometimes I literally feel it, and tears will come down. Like, the tears will come down before the thought of I miss them comes into my mind. It's just an odd, like, I feel it at like a visceral level. And so I let it in. And he had said something, I loved it. He was like, let it in and then let it fall within the emptiness of your mind. And so it's like, just empty your mind and let it, you're letting it in and you're not like, boom, ping. You're just like, I'd like to come in, for tea. And you're like, nope, closing the door. Or like, taking a shotgun and shooting you away.
Yeah.
It's like, let you inside and then make the room so big in your mind that this thought is just infinitesimally small.
Very cool.
Yeah, I love how he described it that way. And what's so weird is that I got a phone call this week. um, I have this new feature in Android where it actually starts. It says before a phone call, a number that you don't know, it comes up. It says,
Yeah.
"Do you want us to screen this call?" And you say yes, and
Whoa.
then the Google Assistant's like, "Hey, this is Google Assistant. Please tell." And it actually shows you what the Google Assistant is saying. It says, "This is Google Assistant. We'd like to make sure that this is, not a spam call or something. They don't use spam, but whatever." We want to make sure you know this person. Can you please tell us a little bit about why you're calling? And then, so I got this message like, I am, blankety blank, and I'm calling on behalf. And I was like, wow, like they were saying these things and it was translating on my phone so I could screen it beforehand. It was brilliant. Anyhow, I got that message. So, like, kudos to Google Assistant. That was pretty cool. So I got this message and I'm like, "Hi, your friend is in the hospital." I'm like, "What?" And so I picked up the phone and heard that a dear friend of mine who's in her 80s was in the hospital, and the message was super cryptic, and I was trying to figure out like, should I? She said the message was essentially, "Please don't call," because she's working on healing. And I was like, oh, okay, I shouldn't call. And then I was like, but I don't know what's going on. Like, I want to call. And then I got a message from one of our mutual friends that said, you should call. I said, but she said not to call, so I want to respect her boundaries. She's like, oh, yeah. People who are sick often say that. And, like, you're trying to, like, work with your head and figure out, like, what is the right thing to do and what, like, what did they say? And she said, and this is this mutual friend, is someone who had a husband who was dying of cancer for a very,
Mhm.
very long time, like 5 years, where she was in and out of the hospital with her husband. And so I trust her advice dearly. So thank you, Anna. And she said, you have to trust your heart. And
Yeah.
whatever your heart says in this moment that it wants to do, you matter too. And what your heart wants, it wants. And so you need to honor that too. So, I mean, I spent like literally hours trying to figure out the right thing to do. So anyways, I did call and I said, "Hey, I called into the nurse and said if she doesn't want to talk, I totally understand, but just let her know that I love her and that I'm thinking about her, and if she wants to talk, I'm here." So anyway, she got on the line and I found out that my friend had fallen down in her bedroom so hard on her head. Like she fell down so dramatically that she couldn't get up off of the floor to call on the phone. And she was also like, it kind of like, I think maybe she had a concussion. So she literally couldn't, like, even if she could physically do it, she didn't have the mental capacities to get off the floor and make a phone call. And so she was on the floor in her bedroom right around the Christmas season for 7 days. No
No
food, no
way.
water, nothing. And I guess between 7 and 10 days, you die. If you just don't eat from malnutrition or dehydration, you just die naturally. She wasn't in any pain. She didn't remember anything. But it was just so like, she was telling me, and I just, tears were running down my face. I was just so distraught that my dear friend, which, like, was, it was during Christmas, and so, you don't get phone calls back, but you think, oh, that's because they're busy, they're with family,
Yeah,
and so you do. So, anyways, but that was very distressing, and so it's weird that both of us had someone. Well, not weird because we always go through similar kinds of
it's
things. It's
true.
so bizarre, but life is really tenuous.
Mhm.
It's just so tenuous, and so you
Which,
know,
which, which is why when you say, I'm not sure if I should call or not, and you check in with your heart, even though we couldn't get through to her for her last few days, most of the time with her in the hospital, I was going, what would A, give us peace? And myself, having spent just a little time in the hospital, CJ, I'm like, yes, there can be times where it's too tiring to speak to somebody, but even just a word or two where you have somebody's presence there makes a difference because the hospital can feel very alone, sterile. And so I'm like, I'm at peace. If the nurse says now's not the time to speak, because there was one point it took us, it's kind of interesting, it took us a day and a half to get through. And we actually found after she passed that she had somehow called us and it got to voicemail and the nurse hadn't left a message. And I'm like, what was she trying to tell us?
no.
But I feel good that we tried. And in our case, we had a guest on talking about this recently. Might have been Christina with her husband. She was supposedly in a coma the last day, and the nurse put the phone to her ears maybe two and a half hours before she passed away,
Mm,
and she was responding to us. So
mm.
supposedly fully in a coma, but she was sort of like you are here. That's all that would come out. But she was responding to what we were saying, and I think that's because consciousness goes beyond consciousness. It goes beyond the waking mind, and so even when you're in a coma, the consciousness can still be there.
Wait, are you talking about Christina told a story about her, or you actually
Uh,
called Carla and that's what was happening?
Two things. First, I believe in Christina's interview, she talked about her husband passing away and having a similar experience where he was in a coma, but he could respond. And Carla was in a coma her last 24 hours, and yet we spoke to her two and a half hours before passing, and she was responding to us.
Wow. Well, do you remember we both of us interviewed
Oh, heck
Alexander,
yeah.
and he was like, on all the medical instruments, it would say that I was flatlining, that I was in a coma, but like I was like traveling, like he's basically traveling the universe and finding about consciousness and all these things. I mean, even though it said his brain had flatlined
Yeah.
and he couldn't get out, I mean, all these different things. So, yeah, I, after talking to him, you think, well, there's something happening beyond what we understand and can measure on a medical device. It's weird. I was biking at my health club. Did I tell? I think I may have told you the story, so I'll make it short. But I was on my. This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was on the health club and I was biking, and I thought, oh, this is the bike of the father of the person who owns this club.
Hmm.
And the person said, um, please tell my son that I actually heard everything that he was saying. I heard him.
Wow.
I just want him to know that I heard him. I was like, okay. And I said, I don't really know your son that well, but you want me to go up and tell him this message? And I was like, yes. I was like, okay. This is like just like the guy that you check in and say hi to. You've said hi to like, maybe 10, 15 times over the course of a couple of years. So I was like, so I knocked on his door, like, knock, knock, knock. And I was like, hey, I know this is kind of strange. I know this is going to sound weird and off-putting, but it, was that your dad's bike down there, the spinning bike? And he's like, yes. And I said, okay, so in the final days, you were in the hospital, and your dad, you didn't think he could hear you. He, and you said a bunch of things to him, and he just wants you to know that he heard you. And the guy's like looking at me like, did you have a question on your membership? Like, what? I wasn't expecting this. But I do think that it had some type of impact on him to just know that, even though there's, like Eben Alexander, there's nothing in the medical devices, and according to our medical knowledge, it would tell you that anyone hears anything. They do. I have a friend who had, I don't know if I told you this last week. She was getting stem cell replacement, and she had cancer, so she had stem cell replacement for this guy from France. And she said, and she has just has the most awful time with prednisone, which is the medicine she has to take. And she woke up. She said, the other day, lately, I've been waking up in the morning, and I'm thinking in French, and
Wow.
and I yeah, she did take French in high school, so she knows some working knowledge of French. She watched a French movie where there were subtitles, and she realized halfway through the movie that she wasn't reading the subtitles. And so she told the nurse, she's like, I don't know how to explain this, but like I'm thinking and and understand French. And she said, oh, we have all sorts of things that people tell us with heart transplants, but like this is kind of common.
So cool.
I know. So like there's just so much that we don't understand, I think, about life and death and how they're connected. I mean, there's just so many things, and souls and
I
how they're connected.
I was getting out of automatic writing when she was passing, and she was in a lot of pain at one point, and I was getting how, um, and I can remember her before she went into the hospital holding her stomach as if she was holding a baby, and she was in
Mm,
tremendous amount of pain in her stomach.
mm,
And what I was getting out of automatic writing is how it's a birthing process to another world, a birthing process to you. You're going within through the death, through the tunnel, just as you came through the tunnel into this life. You're birthing into the other world as well,
that's
the life after
beautiful.
life.
That's beautiful, and I mean, it's not like you're like, hey, I guess I'm thinking. It's like, well, no, like you actually know. Did it feel
Yeah.
like you were coming? Did it feel like you were going through a tunnel when you had your near death experience? Your
Yeah,
both of
the
your near death experiences.
second one was starting in that direction, and I shut it down, but I was given a choice to shut it down. And so there was the tight and narrow squeeze, and there was the field of vision from the conscious to the unconscious, where the whole world went whew, and just enclosed in, and like I'm looking through a pinhole, but I'm still looking through the pinhole on this side of the tunnel. I don't see like a beam of light. Everything has just gone narrow on me,
Mm.
and I could feel there was peace, presence, goodness, all okayedness if I went through this tunnel.
Okay, so you're on
But
this side, and you see like a pinhole on the other side,
I'm on this side,
and
and
you see
basically
goodness on the other side.
my vision is blanking out.
Hmm.
So it's as if somebody has taken right now we have what we can see out 120 degrees or something from our eyes or peripheral. Go to 110, go to 190, 87, 60, 10, and so your vision is still of this world, but it's this tiny little pinhole at this point,
Mm.
and that's all you've got left.
Of this
And
world or the
that's
future, or the world you could have gone to.
this world. I didn't see a
Mm,
bright light. I didn't see a full tunnel. I was
you
getting
just
a tunneling effect of everything.
oh wow.
Bingo.
Wow.
And, it brings us right back to now and Jessica's miscarriage and everything. I had just said, I'm feeling it's time for kids.
Yeah.
And so I've got, and I know how painful and grisly this would be because it was a similar accident to what I had had before. And I'm shattered. I'm here on the rocks. I've stopped bleeding. But it wasn't necessarily my time. I could make a choice. And so I chose, I'm like, bliss, goodness, everything. I'm like, Jessica, baby, family. I'm taking
Mm-hmm.
choice B right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I had,
So when you died the second time on the rocks
that was
and
the
you're thinking,
second time.
yeah, so you didn't go through a tunnel. It was just like a or B choice. It wasn't the same kind of telescoping thing.
No, the second
Telescoping.
time was the telescoping
Oh, the
with
second
the
time
A
is
root B choice.
ah.
The first was I can't say if, where, what, when, how I went anywhere. Maybe I did. It was an instant, what do they call it? Satori, an
Mm-hmm.
instant, complete, and total shift. Boom! I hit the deck, different me.
Mm.
Was I gone for a little bit and then back? There was no known loss of consciousness. A complete and total shift, as if I didn't know I was wearing an elephant my whole life, but an elephant had been lifted off of me.
Mm.
Because when the emergency crews and the first firefighter got there, I had the most beaming ear to ear grin. And I had just moved a leg over, which prevented what was left of my femur from puncturing the femoral artery, which was absolutely grisly. And I had such a gigantic smile on my face. So everybody who comes up to me saying, "Did you hit your head?" I'm like, "No, I didn't hit my head." "Did you hit your head?" "No, I didn't hit you." "Did you hit your head?" "I'm in a lot of pain. Let me go back to my
Look
meditation
at
help
my
sheet."
leg. Please notice below.
But it was a
Wow.
complete and total instant shift.
Mm.
Where I went, time is not linear. I can't say anything. No angels, no trumpets. But as far as I'm concerned, April 2nd, 2006, Michael version 1 died.
Mm.
Gone.
My
Completely gone.
girlfriend who fell on the ground and was basically near death, right? I mean, 7 to 10 days. She would have. I mean, if like it had been even an hour later, who knows if she'd still be alive. And I said, "Oh, do you remember? Do you want me to call blankety blank?" And she said, "Who?" And I said, "Blankety blank. That's that
Yeah.
person's name, right?" And they're like, "What?" And I said, "Do you remember?" And she's like, "Honey, tell me again." And I was like, "This is a person. She lived here. They did blah, blah, blah. You know her from blah, blah, blah. You used to say blah, blah, blah about her." And she's like, "Where did I meet her?" And I said, "You met her on a walk, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "Oh, okay. Now I know." And then she said to me, "Honey, when we have conversations, just let's stay in the present." It was, and to me, I wonder if a part of her did die. She came back and she wasn't focusing on anything but the present. It's like, who even cares who blankety blank was? This is a person that was kind of challenging. She's like, no, she forgot. I feel bad about bringing up blank because she really didn't want to hear anything about him. And she like
Interesting.
effectively eradicated this person in the challenging scenario away, and she just wanted to focus on the present. And I wonder if it's related to the thing that you just mentioned.
My memory, so I have an MBA, I have a second master's in computers. Those are prior to to these events. And I laugh and joke about it because Jessica's like, "Who's the one who's good at computers?" But it's as if that was a different me, a different version of me. The memories are there. They're fuzzy. They're not like fuzzy, like brain injury fuzzy.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm playing a film that's not really me. It's a really, okay, I can see I did that, I did that, I did that. It lost all of its sharpness, its realness, as if it was somebody else's film.
That's so interesting because you remember Eben Alexander was saying that he's a brain surgeon, trained at Duke, all this stuff, or at Duke. He was a brain surgeon from Duke or trained at Duke. Who knows? Anyways, he was a neurosurgeon.
And he was a instructor, a brain surgeon professor at Harvard.
Yeah, I mean the guy's very well. He has a stellar reputation. Anyways, he was like people were talking to him, and he said, I remember reading the book like things weren't coming in line. Like they were like, you remember when blah blah blah, and there was just this kind of like fuzzy memory, and he was trying to like, oh yeah, I remember being able to do this surgery, like if it was like a different life, because it probably was to him. And I actually just had that same experience yesterday. I was a dear friend of mine wanted help in marketing, and we were talking about it, and it just felt so draining because that's my professional path, and I knew the information, but it was just like dragging stuff out of like who was that person? Like who is even this person who's answering from this perspective? It just felt
Yeah.
like this foreign being, blah, emanating, talking about marketing. It's weird, isn't it, that we have when those parts of us die, they're still there, but they're like distant memories. That's the only thing that I have that's akin to what you're talking about. And isn't that interesting? And you can sort of remember it if you want to about the computer science and business classes, but you don't want to. Is that how you feel about it, or you
I
just don't
don't
think
see
about it?
Don't think about it. No need. Can I recall stuff? I can recall little bits and pieces, much less than I would think I should be able to recall. It's like a different lifetime ago.
Yeah.
Sort of like you've traveled across the country, you've moved from the US to China, India to the US, wherever to wherever, and that was such a different galaxy
Right.
ago.
Isn't that fascinating? All right, so I had my own tech madness. We were talking about tech madness
Yeah,
before, and I had my own tech madness where I had 2 point, have you ever had, did I tell you this? I had 2.8 terabytes of a Skype cache file on my machine. I kept
that's
on deleting
massive.
things and deleting things, and then finally I'm like, hey, what's this 2.8 terabytes of stuff?
I'm gonna go hunting here because I keep on offloading stuff from my drive, and I was gonna set up new drives for the new year, and I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, look for
Kind
Skype cache. I
so I'm
mean,
gonna do that because I keep offloading, and yet it keeps filling and filling. So I want to see if that could be going on my side of things.
yes, because we have a very similar kind of tech setup. So it took all that time. And now I actually finally moved over that cache file because I wasn't sure if I needed it. So I moved it
Right,
over
right. You
to
don't want to
another
delete it.
file. But then now I don't have enough room in another file. And then I had to like, I have to, I only have one port, like 4 ports on my Mac. So I have to get a port extension. I mean, all it's like, come up with this cascade of technical
So
madness.
how do you bounce back? What's the resilience related to tech magnets and Skype cache
I don't really
files?
know because I have to say that there are a couple of times where I feel like, well, still work to do. The technical stuff, it's really hard to bring that joy in with the technical stuff. I'm gonna try because that's my
I
test.
send the cache love. I send the
It's
cache
my
love.
test right now. That and pain, like my eye surgery, I said was like it was worse than my C-section. It's the worst pain that I've ever felt. It is the longest recovery that I've ever
Yeah,
had. Like my eye is still not 100%. I'm basically walking around partially blind for the
yeah.
last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's awful, but like I guess it's just the life, it just takes time. But yeah, those are the areas that I still need help in. Like, how can I bring joy into this scenario? Because it's very distant when I'm on the tech call. I'm like,
I'm going to see how I can draw this back to a similar, not similar, completely different, but maybe there's some similarity here. I've had over recent years knees growing very stronger and stronger and stronger. I've been
yes,
running like the wind, running downhill on snowshoes, running up mountains until Jessica got on her snowshoes over the holidays. And I was doing like once every 2 to once every 3 days, allowing the body to recover.
right.
But then she wanted to go out with me on my recovery days, and I ended up doing 6 days straight and basically got run into sawdust. And to where
That would be hard on the knee. 6 days.
my knees got really sore, a ligament got a bit pulled. And when you're not feeling great physically, it can really affect the mind and your spirit.
Yes.
And so I've been working to say, I couldn't think of a better one, Thank you, knee spirit. Thank you, knee spirit. I'm sending you love. I'm sending you love. And going to where that pain and the discomfort is, and focusing on it and trying to bring as much love to that discomfort as I can. As you see me sitting here, I'm squirming every few minutes because I'm better. I'm not 100% yet. I haven't found the right position for my knee right now as I'm sitting here. I will go snowshoeing Sunday. We'll pick up the car tomorrow. Sunday I will go snowshoeing. But I'm just having to focus on it with positive intention rather than to push it away, but to feel better through the experience.
You know, I took a class in shamanic soul retrieval, and it
Mm-hmm.
said that when you actually hurt your body and physically hurt or injure something, a part of your body's like, you know, I'm giving you the finger. I'm out of here. And like you actually have a
I
soul,
love you, Nee.
a
It's
soul
okay, Nee.
part that like
Okay.
flees, and so you do the shamanic journey to like, please come back to me, soul part that has fled out of, and you like, take and imagine like you go back where the injury occurred when you lost that soul part of your knee, and you ask it to return back, and you
I like
bring
that.
it back, and you kind of reintegrate like, I promise to take care of you, honey. It's okay. But yeah, you kind of do that kind of thing. So maybe something to try with your knee, or alternatively just take drugs, because a friend of mine said yesterday, you're in Colorado, I'm in Seattle. CBD is legal regardless, but my spinning instructor said, you know what, a bunch of us, like I guess a bunch of retired people take this bus that goes up skiing up in the mountains. And she said there are 80-year-olds, 70, 60, like these are just people who are on the bus and they're having a grand old time. Like they're coming back and drinking cocktails, watching movies, like they're having a fantastic time. And when they got back, someone was distributing a CBD supplement, which is the non cannabinoid, the thing that won't get you high version of pot, marijuana, but it's also the part that like relieves. It's like anti-inflammation, all these different things. So these gals were all popping CBD pills, and each of them woke up the next day and said, because they skied, and when you ski, you like hit all these kind of weird muscles that you never hit, and usually
Yeah.
like at 65 or 80, like it's hell on your body. So they took these CBD pills, and they said they felt great the next day.
Wow. So I've been we're out of CBD oil in the house. Was taking that as a supplement maybe since May since we moved to
Is
Colorado.
it
That makes
it's an
sense.
oral one, or is it you
I
put on
was
the?
taking an oral one, but I have been for the knee taking one that topically, and I do tend to consider it, I call it the world's greatest snake oil. I don't know if or what it does, but maybe it's placebo effect, but it does something. And so I do use it and I swear by it. This time around, I haven't used it that much. When I do use it, though, I actually, in my own shamanic way, I say, thank you, plant spirits. Thank you, spirits of the
Beautiful.
hemp. Thank you, CBD spirits, the spirits of this plant, for taking care of my knee. Thank you for looking over me.
So
Thank
you
you for
just take
healing
the
me.
CBD oil, the topical one, and you put it around your knee joint, and then what happens? Do you do before and after, and what happens for
If I'm
you?
really sore, I'm interested as to why I haven't done it much the last few days. I think I've actually felt too overwhelmed with what's happened with Carla, and then it's been 3 days of contractual circus,
Right.
figuring out with the vehicle. I've been a little too fatigued to take the time with it. Oh, we'll talk about the mattress next time. But other than this time, I'll just put it on even every few hours and massage it. And it can be as a salve or it can be an oil. I've been using a salve that has uh, capsaicin, basically red pepper in it as well.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, good.
It's supposed to heat it up. I don't actually feel that. Jessica loves the smell. She's like, I want to eat that stuff. I'm like, I don't think you do, baby. But I'll massage it on and like it to me with CBD oil, I can almost, this was the exception to the rule, almost do no ill. I can almost run my legs off, run my feet off, run my whatever off massage some CBD oil into it, and the next day I feel great.
Mm.
This has been the one exception that CBD hasn't fully, the 6 days was, way too much.
Yeah, but you didn't use
So
the CBD oil, you said.
just a little bit, not as much as I could. So
Okay.
I will take this as universe speaking to me here, and afterwards I will go get my CBD oil and I will go
So
and
every couple of
massage it.
hours, like just think about what had to happen for this message to be communicated. We had to talk about I
I
don't
love
even know
it.
how
Thank
even
you.
we got to this place. But I literally went spinning yesterday. She talked about the CBD thing. I thought that's interesting. And so just think about all the steps that had to come to this very moment to tell you to take more
Thank
CBD.
you, universe.
Okay, so
Love
tell
it.
me about cats and mice. And
So
so
that's and that. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I'm like, really? The mice are back?
No,
What?
what we got back to two mice, one which was really cute and actually friendly,
Hmm.
and the weather wasn't that great, so we hadn't released them yet. But with them on my beautiful desk where I do all my writing and everything, the love bug was starting to go nuts with these mice in the cage. And this one mouse was fearless. We called her Mighty Mouse, and she would hop up onto the screen on the top of the case and climb around. And so
She's
Lovebug would
taunting.
pounce on the top of it and couldn't get through, thankfully. And it was unnerving me. And so when the weather turned a little bit better, they got released, and I am on a catch and release policy that unless it's the middle of a freezing below zero blizzard, I want to release them right away before they even get really warm in the house or used to it. I want to get them back out right away. It's
Right.
not fair to them to stay. They're wild creatures. It drives the kitty nuts and it takes away my bandwidth because I love all creatures and I don't want the cat to be nervous with the mouse. I don't want the poor mouse having a predator just staring at it outside the cage 8, 10 hours a day. That can't feel too good.
All
And I
right.
have this nice across my beautiful pine desk, this nice cat scratch, like the whole way along now
Wait
from a
for
couple of days ago.
wait from the cat wanting to pounce the mouse.
Yes,
Oh my
yes.
gosh. Okay. So
And that's a letting go. There's an allowance on so many levels
you're
there.
like, okay, I get the message. Get the mouse out immediately. That this my story is ongoing. It's fascinating. It
Well,
started.
now we have a Tesla coming into the garage. We are going to have to be on our A game
Oh
with
right.
mice.
Oh, because it could actually go in and eat your little Tesla. Oh man. Or you could run over it, or
No, no, more concerned about it eating wires or something like that.
no, brother. Okay.
So yes, it's an ongoing saga. I cut you off
I
there.
like
You
you get
you
the dog, you had that. Then before you had the hummingbirds,
we've had
deer. We just
hummingbirds, birds, deer, elk. Last year we rescued raccoons.
yeah,
W-
in North Carolina, it was that raccoon family, right? Where you
yeah,
just snakes coming in your middle of your run. Really, it's fabulous. I am never ever going to get bored talking to you, Michael. Ever. Like seriously, there's no way ever to be bored. Okay, so the last thing is the importance of words. Did we talk about that already or not?
we did more or less, but it's a good reminder for all of us that how important it is to watch the messages that you share with yourself.
Mm.
I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. I might screw it up. Well, I'll end up out on the streets, or who knows what it is that we say to ourselves. So I've been watching this as I'm going through this contract, and I'll be even careful. I joked and called it a contract madness. As we're getting these things straightened out with Tesla, I have tried to be really careful in my communication with them to transmit a positive message. Honey, not vinegar, not a or we get in blah blah blah. But also we do bring about what we think about, and it is energy and vibration. And so how much can I choose my words carefully for my mind, for my communication with others, for my relationships? And it's just fascinating to watch, again, the addiction of the mind to the negative and to want to put us down and to want to keep us small or to play the messages of well, I wanted to say our parents and positive influences, but something actually wants me to use the word of our captors,
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, we were kind of kept in these boxes with the words. Now we've been let out of that quote unquote prison, and we keep ourselves in the prison with the
Mm.
words we use.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's brilliant that you're being conscious of that. It's all about, popping, from if you go back to this trident, right? And this is the way that I think about it.
Yeah.
Is you're kind of in this lower state of consciousness, and how can you pop up to that place of joy, the place of higher consciousness, the place of where it all happened, and then come up with the words and act and have the words emanate from that place. And it's
Yes.
interesting because sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to say. Like, this is like a horrible situation. It's so full of conflict. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I literally walk into it going, Spirit, please just use my mouth because I have no idea if what I want to say if what comes to my mind gets tumbling out into my words, this is going to be disastrous. So please just do me a solid. I'm going to get out of the way and just tune in and have whatever words need to tumble out come out. And when I do that, it's miraculous because some of the things like, that was brilliant how you handled that. Like, I think to myself, that was truly diplomatic. And it's not even me. It's some other thing that is working through me. And if you can raise yourself to that elevated consciousness when you're talking, stuff just comes out in a beautiful way. So even the harshest thing that you're thinking gets converted into like, hey, I'm wondering, with this contract for Tesla, the thing that's happening for me, like you can just do it in a way that both parties feel good about the whole scenario. But what I like is just not having to think about it. I'm just like, just please. Like I'm like a Paul Selig. What's that, the turtle? Yeah, just
The
slowly
turtle.
talk. Slow down. Just like, please help me come through this on the other side. I don't remember it all the time, but when I do, it makes a huge difference. Huge.
And I don't pretend to remember it all the time as well. And Jessica would certainly be okay at pulling out an inventory of all of the times
Yeah, just 2 days
because
ago,
she
I was like
knows.
yelling at my son. I'm like, really? And I'm like, oh my God, how did I end up here again?
Yep.
Anyhow, what a lovely conversation. It's always
This
so nice
has
to
been.
talk to
This
you.
really has been, and it's been very mellow today.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed the pace and the cadence and the sweetness to it. I guess this is what I needed after a week. I was up back again. Numbers popped in my head at 3 in the morning, and I'm like, do I have to get out of bed and work on this email to Tesla now? Do I have to?
I'm sorry.
And the answer was yes.
It is your teacher, Michael. Is you just like this list is my teacher
Yes.
finding out about frames and libraries and why I have to. Okay, it's our teacher.
All right. Any last words of wisdom?
That's it. I think the best words of wisdom as you think about resilience is the one that I got from Lama Surya Das. Don't let go, let in, and just create a space, an empty mind. That's how you become resilient, I think.
Woohoo.
How about you?
And let in, breathe, snuggle up with the discomfort, look at it. And if you're there enough, reframe.
Mm,
It isn't all as it appears to be.
mm.
Then, of course, I wouldn't be me without saying, send it love, send it love.
Kind, gentle, easy, good.
Love yourself up like there's no tomorrow. I love myself. I love you, inner child. I love you, inner child. I love you, little Michael. I love you, little Michael. I love you, little Michael. That's actually my meditation I've been doing each morning right now. It's about 20 minutes of that.
Okay, I'll,
And
and I'm going to say, I love you, little Michael.
oh, and I love you, little CJ, too. You must have been so cute. You're still cute, but you must have been so cute.
Oh, love
So
it.
for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler and
CJ Lou from the Fired Up with CJ show.
saying, be well, have fun, breathe deep into whatever is coming your way. This too shall pass, and above and beyond all else, shine bright.
Woo!
Woohoo!
Arms of the angels. Yeah, Carla was here with us today. Could you feel her?
Carla, 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 I love you. 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 Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for being in our lives. And I know you are still in our lives, watching over everything. So thank you so, so much, Carla. Woohoo.
Woohoo! I do feel her. Did you feel her? Like there was a part in the show where I was like, "Whoa!" I'm not sure what is happening in the energy, but we were talking about her, and I just felt like, "Oh, did you feel it?" It was like sweet.
I just felt this peace. This
Yeah,
peace is
yeah,
the sweetness that came over this interview.
yeah. What does she look like? I had this image of my head, but I don't know if it's accurate.
I'll share what she looks like. Then I'm actually late for coaching
Okay, all
session.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, don't worry about that.
I don't know her exact height. Dark